It's a great pleasure to see you this morning. And I will not take too much of your time because we have distinguished guests with us that will give you a bird's eye view of the global governance and global issues that are very concerning to all of us. We've had an interesting year with the financial crisis. It's been a difficult year for business, for governments, for everyone. I wouldn't call it actually the financial crisis. I would call it the value crisis. And it's much more serious than actually, it's much more serious. When you talk about values, you actually speak about the core of a civilization. And if we're completely led by greed, our society can only go one way, and it's on the decline. We need to understand the interlinking of our actions. We need to understand when we say no to Doha, what does that mean? We need to understand that it will have an impact on poverty in Africa. That then, if we have more poverty, it creates less hope. And when there's less hope, there's more violence. And when there's more violence, there's more cost in terms of military. So how do you actually explain that to the American population that really care only about how much money they make in their backyard? It's challenging. We are asking them to worry about poverty in another country. It's difficult, but Pascal will speak about that in more detail.
One day before this meeting, one cannot not recognize that the overall feeling is that there's a lack of leadership. If you take finance, environment, development, trade, which is the sort of core business of the G20, there is a feeling that as compared to the challenges which we have to cope with, the international leadership capacity is too weak. Exiting the crisis will necessitate a sort of series of confidence-building measures. That's one, as proven by previous rounds for the last 50 years. Second, because it would be a strong signal that multilateralism is back.
Two areas that I worry about in terms of global threat, particularly emanating from ungoverned space, are the world of bioterrorism and the world of cyber terrorism. You know, we all talk about nuclear bombs in the 20th century. We're worried about a nuclear attack. But if you ask me what is the most likely form of weapon of mass destruction that we will experience in anger in the next decade, I would have to say a bio attack. The tools that are necessary to create a biological weapon, the basic raw material, occurs in nature. Anthrax, plague, these can be found around the world. All that you need in order to translate that into a weapon is the know-how to weaponize it and to make it transmissible in a form that is easily carried and easily dispersed. And the challenge of detecting, preventing, and maybe most important, responding to a bio attack is a fundamental security challenge of our time. I would argue that we've made a lot of progress in individual cases and in individual areas in getting global cooperation. We have seen major steps forward with respect to dealing with pandemics.
Basically, what we are doing is investigating the world's crimes. We are prosecuting people we have 4 militia leaders from Congo, in jail. They were the leaders of different militias, abducting girls, raping women, transforming kids in soldiers. Probably the most difficult case for us is the case in which the members of the government are involved, because it's difficult. So basically, we are prosecuting President Bashir and the current governor of South Kordofan, who is a very rich state in the Sudan, a person called Ahmed Haroun, because basically they attack the Sudanese citizens. they attack the citizens they have to protect. And that is a paradox. That's why these 2.5 million people today, the number of victims today is at 2.5 million. They need someone else protecting them. And that is the problem that she mentioned. When your neighbors are fighting, are you tempted to intervene or not? So it's complicated for other countries to intervene. I think the court is showing a different form of intervention, non-military intervention, legal intervention, and we have to do more to understand how it's working.
Peace and economic stability are intimately entwined. And if you lose one, you're most likely to lose the other one. Peace is a necessary precondition for growth and trade and prosperity, but it goes also the other way around, and a rising prosperity and broadly shared, both within countries, among countries, can foster peace. Today's, the world's economic outlook is better. It seems that we averted a disaster. But this was not a mere accident. It was not a question of good luck. It's because of a very bold decision made by policymakers. And really, I want to insist on this. It's what has happened during the last year is totally unprecedented. That almost all countries, at least the countries having some room for economic policy, fighting in the same direction, trying to reach the same target, implemented the same policy at the same time. And the coordination that took place at this time is totally unprecedented. I have read a lot about the lack of coordination, which is true. I mean, we always could ask for more coordination. But we can see it the other way around and see how big the coordination has been, especially with the emerging of the G20 at the level of head of state and governments. The big move will have as a result a shift from advanced economies to emerging countries, and especially from the European countries. So they're resisting. I think the Europeans understand today that they have to move. And so I think it's possible that what you call the American plan, which in my view is a broader plan than American, but the US has been very helpful in pushing this agenda, there may be some good results in Pittsburgh. One thing is to make decision, to organize it at the funds level and so this kind of thing, and then to have it really implemented. What you need 186 countries going to the parliament and having this vote. I can understand that for most government it's not on the top of the agenda, so they have other things to do. But there's kind of a bit of a contradiction between asking for more shift and speeding up the process, and at the same time not being able to implement the former reform. On your second point on the financial sector, it's certainly something on which we have some progress in Pittsburgh. How far will it go depends upon the negotiation. I think that during the last weeks, the different proposals by the Europeans on one hand and the US on the other hand have converged. So I think we're not so far of having an agreement.